Hey folks, how you guys doing? This is my workbench. I've had it for a few months now and I absolutely love it. This area of the shop seems to be the most frequently used area of my shop these days. However, like I said, I've had it for a few months and people have noticed a couple of the changes that I've made to the workbench. Nothing major. The workbench itself is pretty much the same. It's just how I use it and a few things here and there that have changed since I made my last video on the workbench. So this isn't going to be a project build or anything like that. I'm just going to talk about the things that I've made, so just forewarning you there. Let's first start with first off, let me say that I spun the workbench around mainly because I'm normally on this end of the workbench where my leg vise is, and for video purposes it makes more sense to have all of the light shining this way rather than having the camera against the wall and having all the light behind the subject. So I spun it around. Doing so allows me to put the twin screw vise, the pipe clamp vise, on that side of the shop area. So let me talk about this one first. So obviously not in this configuration. This is my twin screw style pipe clamp vise, and I added it specifically because it's extremely inexpensive and it's very versatile and convenient for wider panels. However, it's the least used vise in my I found out for my workflow on this workbench. So I decided to take the jaw out really quick and set my hand tool tote in its place when the vise is not needed. So this is all temporary, but it's very handy and convenient. This is held in place by just one of the pipe clamp screws, and it's not going anywhere. It's too heavy to be picked up and moved off when it's clamped down. It's not permanent, it's temporary. So this gives me great access to all of my tools where I typically am working on the leg vise side of the workbench, but it also allows me to quickly move them out of the way if I need to use this particular vise. So literally it's just one of these screws that's holding it in place. The bottom side of it is just a piece of melamine shelving that I have to stop the tote from sliding off the pipes. And you move it out of the way, have the jaw sitting down here, and you're back in business with this being a vise. So now you can see it's the actual vise. When it's not being used, which is most of the time, this fits under here, and of course the tool tote or the tool tray, whatever you want to call it, is set back in place. And one screw is enough to hold it in place. So just a little added convenience for this style vise to make a non-permanent tool tray that's easily removed when I need to use the vise. Another change I made was I've added dog holes to this side of the workbench. This is the side that I'm most typically on. It's the side with the leg vise, which is where I'm most typically at. And about 2 3/4 of an inch in from this side, I added 16 dog holes along this length. And each one of these dog holes is just a 3/4 inch hole with a 3/4 inch oak dowel sticking through it. These are really tight right now, so you have to use a mallet to knock them down or push them back up. And I want them that way because I know things loosen up over time, and I don't want to make them loose right now, only to be too loose down the road. So, like I said, there's 16 of these. They're 4 inches on center, except for where those increments landed inside one of these leg tenons. I did not want to drill any of those. So between this leg, on the outside of this leg tenon, these two are about 5.5 inches apart, which is fine because there's like 12 inches of travel, something like that in this tail vise. So, like I said, knock them down to get them out of the way and knock them up to use them. Now, if you're not familiar with this particular setup or why this is useful, if you wanted to work on the top face of a board, you could use hold downs or clamps to hold it down, but then you lose that space where the hold down or the clamp is, so you can't work with it. This allows you to work with an entire board without losing any of the top surface. So if I loosen up my vise, now the board is properly secured and I can work with a plane or something like that. So I added these dog holes to this side of the workbench. The few changes that I'm most excited about are on this leg vise. Now this leg vise is a DIY kit from Dima Gamma Unov here on YouTube. He sells the whole kit, which is what I got, or just the wooden portion of it if you want to if you have your own screw to use, or he's got plans for you to make the whole setup. But anyway, I really like this particular kit. It's working out really, really well. There's a couple changes that I've done to make it a little bit better as far as it actually in use on my workbench. So what I was finding is the more I move this out, the more the whole jaw assembly would drop a little bit and kind of rack, just the screw would rack just slightly going through the leg of my workbench, and it would cause this to be a little bit more difficult to turn. So to alleviate that, on the inside of the workbench where the extra part of the screw is sticking out, I just put a spacer block in between the top of the screw and the bottom of the workbench, and this spacer block kind of keeps the screw parallel as it goes through the legs, parallel to the floor. And that makes this whole assembly go very, very fast. So with just one finger, it's extremely fast to operate. Now, if you saw the original video when I installed this leg vise, you'll know that you may have noticed that this doesn't move anymore. Clockwise or counterclockwise according to the screw. Previously, I did not have anything to prevent this bottom from sliding left or right. So as you tightened it down, you're moving the screw clockwise, which makes the bottom of this want to move clockwise, which makes the top of your leg vise here not flush with the top of your workbench. I said it wasn't really a problem at all. It was just a minor inconvenience, which it was an inconvenience. So to alleviate that, I clamped the leg vise all the way down to the workbench, the way with it referenced up here as it should be. And then I traced the inside portion of the lower part of this stretcher and the leg, that little notch. I traced it on the inside of the leg chop and then cut that particular piece out and installed a scrap piece of oak that just butts up against the side of the leg. So what this does is it's not fixed to anything other than the actual leg vise itself. And as you tighten this down, it stops the counterclockwise motion of the bottom of this leg jaw because it hits the inside portion of the leg. And to stop it from going the other way, I just glued another block to the other side of it. So as you loosen the screw, it doesn't want to go counterclockwise. So these two changes together make it extremely simple and easy to use. And of course, the parallel guide is nothing more than a wedge. So as you're working with this, it's hands-free. You can hold your material as needed, use the screw as needed, and adjust the parallel with the wedge as needed. It's a very easy, simplified solution that works very, very, very well. Just to show you how quick and easy this is to adjust and use, first make sure the top just slightly touches. Slide the wedge in place, and this is what I'm calling wedge tight because you can still manipulate the piece in the vise as needed, and then give it another eighth of a turn or a quarter turn, and it's really not going anywhere whatsoever. Changing to a thicker material is extremely fast. Same thing, make sure the top touches, advance the wedge as needed, eighth of a turn to a quarter turn, and it's really not going anywhere. Now the wedge size that I'm using is good for about 4-inch thickness of material up here, and typically everything you're going to use in a leg vise is smaller than that anyway, so it's just fine. However, if you wanted to go further, you can. You just place an appropriate size spacer in between the leg and the wedge down below. I really, really like this leg vise. So these few changes individually are very minor, but added together, combined, they make a huge difference on the interaction and working with the workbench. So the quick and easy removable tool tote, tool tray, just the option of having something like that there, adding these dog holes to this side, and of course the leg vise changes that really make this leg vise awesome. I absolutely love it. I also added some leather to the jaws of the vise over here, which you do that to just about any vise if you want. If you're not familiar with this workbench, I do have a 3-part series on this workbench. The first video is making the workbench itself for, I think, like $110 in lumber. Not much money at all. It's very inexpensive to make. The second video is adding the vices. The third video is adding the cabinet down below. And if you are getting interested in woodworking, this is something that I recommend regardless of what style workbench you go with. Having a nice solid place to work on stuff is something I recommend for anybody. If you're more of a convenience person, I do have plans available for this particular style workbench if you choose to decide that this style workbench is the one that you want. There's so many different styles out there. I'm very happy with this one. But anyway, I'll post links down below to all 4 of those, the 3 videos and then the plans if you're interested. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, leave them down below. I'll be sure to answer them. You guys take care. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.